to have asked Marcus and Sandra Ray here today. Sandra was one of Lenador's very first students back in the day in Alpha House. And I would really love Sandra to speak a little bit first of all about those early days.
Okay.
I don't know how you handled the chaos as a Virgo.
Right. Yeah, well, I was guided to move to California. I didn't have a job. I didn't know anyone. I was told by a voice to go there. And I had some serious problems because I had been divorced, so my hair was kind of falling out and so on. I had a pain in my body that I'd had for a long time, and I was looking for answers. And then I got to California, found a job, and I started having these car accidents. And I couldn't understand why I kept getting rear-ended on the left rear, even when I wasn't in the car. So I was crying one night about this in a seminar, and these guys said, "What's your problem?" I said, "I'm having this car accident syndrome." And they said, "Oh, there's this new guru in town, we'll take you to him." And I said, "I'll try anything." So the next day on Sunday, they drove me out, and we were out in the country in Santa Cruz Mountains. And there was this guy there with a flip chart outside, which I thought was very unusual, you know. And he was saying the most profound things. He was talking about the 5 biggies, you know. And the 5 biggies are your birth trauma, your specific negative thought structures like your personal lie, parental disapproval syndrome, the unconscious death urge, and other lifetimes. And I looked at that list and I said, somewhere in that list is the cause of all my problems. So I surrendered to him, and I asked him for a consultation. And then I ended up part of the great experiment when he first decided to try out rebirthing, which was wet, with a snorkel in a hot tub. And, you know, I volunteered to be there, so I was at the very, very, very beginning. I was number 3 in line, and and I got in this was a couple of days later, I got in this hot water, and I'm breathing through the snorkel, and I remember I let out some large noise, and I didn't know what was happening to me. And then afterwards, they put me under this tree. This was all outside in the mountains, and I saw the auras around all the leaves. I'd never seen an aura in my life. I said, "This is magic." I said, "How do I become a rebirther?" It came right out of me, you know, my first session. He said, "Handle your birth trauma and move in with me." And I thought, this guy is crazy. I can't move in with him. So we got this big house in the old Haight-Ashbury, 301 Lion Street in Haight-Ashbury area. We had no furniture, but we got a hot tub and we put it in the basement, and we started rebirthing each other night and day. And I was working as a nurse at the time in Berkeley. And, you know, after a couple sessions, all my pain disappeared, and my hair started growing back, and it all turned into magic. And it was very intense because we had the water too hot, you know. People were going into paralysis. We had the water way too hot. So we finally figured out we could turn down the temperature. And so that was the beginning. That was the very beginning. And then I started spreading it all over, but we couldn't travel too much because we hadn't discovered dry rebirthing yet. So.
Yeah. And you have a wonderful story about the introduction to Babaji.
Okay, well, we'll get to that. I want Marcus to share his experience.
You know, I think Lenador was a genius. He had his foibles, but this 5 biggies that he introduced that are the thought factors that prevent us from being in bliss. And I think if mainstream psychology got behind these things, it would revolutionize psychology. And breathwork, it's like it's the catalyst for change, because a lot of these memories and traumas that we hold from our past are actually held in our cells. And you know, scientists now like Bruce Lipton, they're even talking about cellular memory. So we have these incidents that are actually stored in the charge of the cells, so that the breath is the way of expanding the cells, oxygenating the cells, making them more free and opened up, and therefore releasing these memories that are held in the cells. So the combination of knowing where the traumas are held, which is birth trauma, personal lie, family patterns, death urge, past lives, those are all major areas that everyone needs to look at, in their life. And then the breath work helps you clear those areas. Mm-hmm. So I think, what Leonard Orr contributed in the beginning was revolutionary to the field of psychology, but it's interesting that 50 years later, psychology still hasn't quite caught up with it.
Yeah.
So we're really ahead of the curve, and I think once it is getting better. I mean, breath work is becoming more of a household word, and people are practicing it, but I think this original 5 biggies of Leonard Orr and using the breath to clear cellular memories, those were revolutionary, and he was a genius for putting that forth.
Yeah, and before I get to Babaji, I just want to say that the way we discovered dry rebirthing was also amazing. We thought we needed the water to have the memory of birth, so we were doing wet rebirthing for a whole year and a half. And then I got a hold of this book, Birth Without Violence. And I said to Leonard, well, let's have the client read this section in this book out loud before we put him in the tank, because it will activate their birth. And it was so intense. So we had this guy, Leonard and I were sitting on the couch, and we had the client in the middle named Stephen. And I said, Stephen, please read this out loud. And it's about the actual delivery itself, written by an obstetrician. So it's so intense. He started going in a spontaneous rebirth right with there and having birth memories. And we had to rebirth him right on the couch. And that was the day we figured out we could do dry rebirthing. And it wasn't the water that caused it. It was the presence of someone who has released their birth trauma, makes it safe for someone else. So once we got dry rebirthing, we could spread it all over the world, and it spread like wildfire. We didn't even go on TV because we didn't have enough rebirthers trained to handle such a thing, but it has spread like wildfire since then. And that's the great news. All over the world. People call it breath work now, but we call it liberation breathing, because we have kind of added a dimension of spirituality using the Divine Mother energy when we do our work together. Marcus and I do sessions together, and then we do Divine Mother prayers at the end and mantras, and people really love that. And we call it liberation breathing, but it's still the same type of breath, pulling on the inhale, relaxing on the exhale, circular, smooth, connected breathing with no pause. The breath is still the same. We've just added a more spiritual dimension.
And it is absolutely magnificent when you're receiving a session and during integration, hearing the 108 names of the Divine
Thank
Mother.
you. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Now, Marcus, how did you first get into rebirthing?
Okay. Well, I was studying yoga. I was one of the original people that studied Kundalini Yoga with Yogi Bhajan back in like 1984, 83. So I was even a Sikh, and I was wearing a turban and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, that was another story. But then my partner at the time did a couple of rebirthing sessions. We were living in Philadelphia with the local rebirther there. And she came back and she said, wow, this is really powerful stuff. So then I started doing the rebirthing, and Sandra Ray came to town and gave an LRT, a loving relationships training, which is kind of the flagship of her training, the trainings that she's still doing today, by the way. So I took the training, and you can't be unaffected by meeting Sandra Ray. It's like the dynamism of her just like almost goes into your system, right? And she introduced all of us to this book called A Course in Miracles. So I was doing the rebirthing, and I was kind of questioning this whole thing about Sikhism, and then she introduced me to the Course in Miracles, which really sang to me. I picked it up and I never looked back. That became my main spiritual practice, And in conjunction with rebirthing, that's one of the most dynamite spiritual practices I could recommend to anyone. Rebirthing plus studying the principles in the Course in Miracles. So that was kind of my launch into the breathwork community. And I went with Sandra to India a couple of times to Babaji's ashrams. So I got that connection. And you know, even Leonard Orr would say Babaji is the father of rebirthing. He received the download from Babaji. So we really feel that Babaji kind of even said rebirthing is the new Kriya Yoga. So it's like people in the West, they don't have time to learn all these complex meditations. Just keep it simple, lie down and breathe. And that's the new Kriya Yoga. And so rebirthing really spread. And I went to India twice with Sandra. And then in 1989, I met this teacher of A Course in Miracles, Tara Singh. I went to one of his workshops, and he had been trained by Dr. Shukman, who was the scribe of the Course in Miracles. So I think at that time there were only two very authentic teachers who were teaching it full time, and that was Tara Singh and Kenneth Wapnick. And Tara Singh really sang to me. And by the way, he was also a Sikh in his Indian background. So because I had been introduced to Sikhism, I sort of knew what that was. And then I was surprised, oh, what's a Sikh doing teaching the Course in Miracles? And that was it for me. I was a student for 17 years, and I kind of lost touch with Sandra Ray because I was so focused on that, the Course in Miracles. And then when he passed away in 2006, I was kind of free. And then I blundered into Sandra Ray again, and here we are.
Here we are.
13 years later. Yeah.
Right.
Fantastic. So let's, I mean, when I first met Sandra through the Loving Relationships training, and she was my first breathwork teacher. And that weekend journey is fantastic. So before we talk about Babaji, can you just talk a little bit about the LRT?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, when I went to California, you know, I had just been divorced, so I was looking everywhere for a seminar on relationships. And they had all kinds of seminars springing up. But I couldn't find one. I said to people, where is a seminar on relationships? They said, oh, everyone is too screwed up in that area to teach it. And I thought, well, somebody has to do it. Does it have to be me? And so then I said that to myself, because I was interested in that subject. Well, then I started studying how your birth trauma affects your relationships, and nobody else was doing that. And this was very interesting research that I was doing, and I was talking about it. And the first time I talked about it, I spoke in a big house in Hawaii, and there's about 30 people sitting on the floor. And at the end, they said, Sandra, this explains everything, but it's too intense for one day. We can't even integrate it. So then I came back to San Francisco and I wrote a 2-day seminar, and it just was magic. And I kept improving it over the years, and it always works. I mean, we talk about Friday night, your personal lies, your most negative thoughts about yourself, and we talk about how to be enlightened. And on Saturday, we review the family patterns, your family dynamics that affect relationships, and we clear those out, and then we breathe. And then on Sunday, we talk about the new paradigm in relationships, and then we breathe at the end. So it's very good and very complete. And right now, we're practicing putting it up online. So Marcus is really working hard to put it online so everybody can have it.
Yeah, so, you know, it's keeping up with these kids, and you're kind of a kid, is really quite a learning curve for us, but I think we're keeping up pretty well. So some of our business advisors said, well, it's a good idea if you get the LRT in a video format, and then you put it up on one of these teaching platforms like Udemy. So that's what we're doing now. We're putting the LRT together, and it's going to be on Udemy, and then anybody can go there and take it quite easily. And then that frees us up to do other types of seminars like 5-day liberation breathing intensives, and we have this training called the Miracle Consciousness Training that we're doing, not this coming weekend, but the weekend right after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we're doing that.
So
we hope
you're
you
all
guys
invited to
we
that.
hope you guys will attend Miracle Consciousness.
And you know, other trainings that we've been wanting to do, but we still want to make the LRT, which is kind of the flagship training, available. So this would make it available quite easily to a big audience. So we're putting the LRT on Udemy, and you know, it's really quite a beautiful platform, and we're having a great time making these videos. So there'll be like 20 short, between 15 and 20-minute videos, and there'll be like, I don't know, maybe 20 of them. And then we probably even have a segment on breathwork, and so people can watch that video on breathwork and actually lay down and breathe. So yeah, we're really excited about the new developments. And then we're still going to give live trainings, but they're going to be on other subjects, you know, like the Course in Miracles, Babaji, you know, that sort of thing. So yeah. That's kind of where we are right now.
So you wanted me to talk about Babaji, meeting Babaji. Was that what your question was?
Yes. So the famous letter that...
Yeah, the famous, you remember so well. Right, I was running the office at Theta House, where the Rebirthing Center was, and I opened the mail, right? So there was a letter to Leonard Orr, 301 Lion Street, very strange. There was no return address, and it was stamped India, but no town. And I thought, this is really strange. Then I opened it up. It was very crazy paper. It was like something you would have in a little old red schoolhouse, you know.
Like handmade paper.
With lines, and there was one statement and no signature. It said, "Come to India." No signature. Can you imagine? I said, "Leonard, we've been called," you know. And we didn't know who was calling us, you know. So then Leonard, he got right away putting a trip together. You know, we were going to go find a guru. Some guru was calling us. And I didn't have any money because I had just given up my nursing career and I was just learning to be a breath worker. So I had to borrow the money to go to India. It's the best investment I ever made. And I borrowed from some people that took the LRT that loved it, and they didn't have any children, and they just here, whatever you need, you know. So then we went, and I think it was about 10 rebirthers went together with him, and we all split up. Leonard said, let's all split up, go to different parts of India and look for gurus, and then we'll all come back in 2 weeks, and we'll meet in Delhi and compare stories. So I went south to meet Rajneesh, and I got real clear that wasn't my direction. Well, everybody went different ways, you know. So we got to back to New Delhi, and Leonard had met another guy named Abu, who was a very advanced yogi. We thought maybe that was it, but I wasn't sure. And one girl was missing. We couldn't find her, and you know, you cannot find a missing person in India. It's not possible. So we had to go back without her, and we were kind of concerned, but she didn't come back for 7 months. And I happened to be right there when she came back, and I said, where have you been? We've been so worried about you. She said, I found the real Babaji. And so I said, Leonard, we have to go right back now. So we went right back, and you know, the rest is history. It's a long story. I don't know how much you want to hear, but you know, it was so exciting to imagine that we could find him. You know, we had read about him in the book Autobiography of a Yogi by Yogananda, chapter 33 and 34. But this guru that Leonard had found named Abu, he wanted me to be his disciple. I should be his disciple. He said, you stay with me. And I thought, no. And Leonard said, you come with me. And I thought, wow, what if I make a mistake? I choose the wrong spiritual path. And I was really nervous. And Leonard said, I am going to go alone. You get your head together and meet me in 3 days. So I was like glue. I couldn't think, and those 3 days, nothing would move. I just felt stuck. I hardly could breathe. At the end of 3 days, I went outside and I started screaming, which I would never do, just to get unstuck. I said, God, I demand to know my true spiritual path, and I demand to know tonight. And I'm screaming this into the darkness. And then I had a dream, and I heard the arti, I heard the Babaji's music, and I thought, I remember this from somewhere. This is it. So I grabbed an Indian bus, And he told me to go to Haldwani and look for this saint named Muniraj. That's the only information I had, you know. So I'm on this bus, and I'm sitting on these tires, and there's this woman vomiting over here, and there's this pig over here, and it's crazy. And I thought, well, I can handle it. I've been in the Peace Corps. Anyway, halfway there, I just felt Babaji rip my heart open. I felt so much bliss, and I knew I had done the right thing. But I got to Haldwani, and I thought it was going to be a little mountain village, and it was a bustling city. I didn't know where, I didn't have an address for Muniraj. So I kept asking, do you know Muniraj? Do you know Muniraj? And it took me 4 hours, I asked people. At the end of, I had a lot of faith though. At the end of 4 hours, some guy said, oh yeah, he has a different name here. His name is Trilak Singh. I said, oh, well, where is he? He's down there at this feed store. And I thought, you know, what's a saint doing at a feed store? So I'm knocking on the door, and there's only before this moment or after this moment in my life, you know, and he was wearing this white silk, and he looked like an angel. And I said, this is the most peaceful being I've ever met in my life. And he said, okay, you may go. And he put me on the path. And in those days, we had to go through the river. And I had a backpack. I didn't even know I could have a porter carrying my stuff. And I'm falling in the river, and it was very treacherous. And but I was determined, and I finally got there, and there was these 108 steps going up to the ashram, and I was so excited. I'm running. Somebody grabbed my skirt, and they said, hey, you're supposed to bow to the guru. I said, well, where is he? And I had run right by him, because I didn't believe it was him, because I wanted my guru to wearing satin robes and a turban and looking, you know. And here was this guy wearing a gunny sack with straw hanging out of his mouth. And I said, that can't be my guru. And later on, I figured out he met me like a farmer, because I grew up with farmers in this little town, population 300. It was all farms everywhere. So he looked like a farmer, and he said, oh, Mrs. Sandra, go take a nap, and you know. And I had all kinds of experiences. I don't know if we have time to go in those, but I wrote a book. We have 2 books on Babaji.
Yeah,
Tell
Babaji, My Miraculous Meetings with a Maha Avatar, that's on Amazon, and then another small book called The Perfection of Babaji. So you can get those and read all about Sandra's encounters with Babaji.
And it's good to read that so you feel connected to Babaji right now, because Babaji says, my love is available. You can take it or not just for me, not just for Marcus. It's for his love is available for everyone now. And he said, you know, you can take my love if you want or not. But I say, well, why not? We need all the help we can get right now. And he said in 1977, when I first met him, the Kranti is coming. And we said, well, what's the Kranti? He said, global revolution. So when the pandemic hit, I knew we were in the Kranti, and we're really in it. And it's going to keep going. The Kranti is going to keep going. There's going to be more and more stuff unfolding that's going to be intense. So this is why I'm telling everybody, please get linked up with Babaji now. You know, so read our books about Babaji, get connected, go to India with us in March, and so on, so you can have this protection. Mm-hmm.
And what would you say your most profound teaching or lesson he gave you was?
I would say there's 2. Well, first of all, he said the formula for happiness is love, truth, simplicity, and service to mankind. Well, that's his basic teaching. And the other one is that work is worship. And I love that idea. So every time you go to work, you feel like you're worshiping God, and your people that come to you are your ministry, you know. And so that has really made me so happy whenever I'm working, you know, that idea. And it doesn't matter if you have a flower shop, a hardware store, or whatever your work is. But if you see it as worship, it'll change your whole attitude about going to work. So that was, you know, one of the main things I got out of it.
Yeah, and I think for people like myself and who didn't meet Babaji in the flesh, I think his teachings were so simple: truth, simplicity, love, and service. And then he gave us the mantra, Om Namah Shivaya, and that is quite easily, you know, incorporated into your daily practice. You just get a mala bead and you just recite Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. When the pandemic hit, we got this message from Babaji to do 10 rounds of Om Namah Shivaya, which we did for months.
Every day.
And we felt great, you know, so it was like our antidote to the pandemic was Om Namah Shivaya.
Before the vaccination, we had that.
And then we always have the breath work that he gave us to clear our subconscious and our memories and our past traumas. So between truth, simplicity, love, and service, Om Namah Shivaya, the mantra, repeating God's name, and having the breath work, you can't go wrong. And it's such a joyful spiritual practice. There's no sacrifice in it. There's no penance or any of that other stuff that we normally associate with spiritual practices. And it's so easy. Anybody can do it. It takes you 5 minutes to learn the basics of breath work. And then it's just like a matter of how much energy and attention are you giving to it, you know? So it's a spiritual practice anyone can do immediately. And it can be implemented like today, you know, and that part I really like about it.
Right, and of course we encourage people to have private sessions because we can look and see where they're stuck and help them get unstuck. And a lot of people don't realize that their subconscious thoughts are creating their results. I guess most people know that negative thoughts create negative results in your conscious mind, but a lot of people don't realize their subconscious thoughts are hanging them up, and that's why they have the problems they have. So we're very good at finding out what is the thought in the subconscious that's causing the problem, the illness, the pain, the disturbance, the relationship trauma, whatever. And then we help people release that through the session. So we work very well together doing a session together, and they have the masculine and feminine energy both. So we encourage private sessions, and of course then people can learn to do it on their own. But it's not as effective because you can kind of trick yourself when you're breathing and think you're clearing something you might not be, you know.
You need...
I have to second that because Sandra and Marcus are the queen and king of processing.
Thank you.
Such an important part of the session.
Yeah.
Is understanding, and you focus a lot of time on processing a person's mind.
Yes.
Maybe you'd like to briefly talk about that because it is so important.
Yeah.
Right. Well, if some people just lie down and breathe a lot and they don't process their mind, then the breath has to work harder, and they could get scared and they could get stuck, and you know, then they could get their hands stiff and all that. Because we talk everything out ahead of time for a half an hour before they breathe, everybody just purges all this stuff, and then the breath flows so easy, and it takes out everything that they had brought up, and we don't create anybody going into paralysis anymore or anything, because the processing is that important. It really helps you get it out and up, and then the breath pushes it all the way. So I think there's 3 parts to the way we do liberation breathing. First we do the history of the person, and then we do the processing of what they want to work on. That's part 1, which is discussion. Then there's the breathing for 45 minutes to an hour. Then we do the Divine Mother names, and then we do a mantra at the end. So there's 3 parts. There's the discussion, the breathing, and the closing with the spiritual things. And it works perfect, you know, it really does.
And the basics of breath work are still there and always will be there from the original rebirthing. You know, we call it processing. But when we're doing that, we're clearing people of the 5 biggies, the birth trauma, the personal lie, their parental and family patterns, their unconscious death urge. And we're working with the Course in Miracles now, and we're asking them, okay, who have you not forgiven in your life? We do a forgiveness test. So we see what their charge is on major people from their past, their mother, their father, their siblings, their exes, their current partner, themselves, and we get a forgiveness test on that so we can really gauge like where are they with anger, guilt, fear. You know, that forgiveness test reveals quite a lot And then because it's both of us, it's sort of mommy and daddy, and we get to clear people on their stuff with their mothers and their fathers all in one session, you know. It used to be, we said, well, you do 10 sessions with a woman, then you do 10 sessions with a man. But now, because we're both together, it brings all that up at once and faster. So we feel like we have a really good combination here. And we really stick to the basics of breath work. And, you know, we were just in a symposium, and the thing came up like, there's a lot of online breath work now, and a lot of music being played, you know, during the session. We never played that much music in the session, even in a group rebirth. And then they said, well, people only need 15 minutes. We feel they need a little longer to breathe, to let things come up. So it's a matter of how deep do you want to go. Yeah, you can do the 15-minute with music breath work, but, you know, how deep will that take you? It might just give you a temporary high and not really process your case. So we're very committed to the original basics of breath work, in which, you know, you actually process people's minds, and then you use the breath to release it. You know, you use the breath in a very pure way without too much talking, let people just get into it. And we say the breath is the bridge between the subconscious and the conscious. So if there's something you need to clear, I guarantee if you lay down and breathe for an hour, it'll come up. And if you're ready to face it, it will come up. So it's like the interface between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind.
Right.
And by breathing, it brings the unconscious to the conscious.
It brings the unconscious to the other thing that we're good at is helping people with their relationships issues, of course. And of course, we help people with their conditions in their body, you know, their pains, their tensions, their symptoms, and if they have a full-blown disease, we know how to help them get out of it. So that's our kind of our specialty, spiritual healing and relationships too. So I think that we can offer that to people, and we feel good about that. Okay, any other questions?
As soon as I did your training, you mentioned Babaji, and I had that instant connection with him. And then you said, and we take people to his ashram. Now, since the pandemic, I know you had to put it on hold. But I believe next year, are you going to start taking people to India?
Yeah. It's back on. It's up on our website.
Yay!
Now we're in close communication with really good friends who are in India, and they're kind of keeping us informed that actually the pandemic is kind of calming down in India. So they feel that next spring the borders will be open and we'll be able to travel. So our India quest, which we take people to Babaji's ashram. We participate in the Navratri, which is a 9-day festival to the Divine Mother, and we do breath work every day on this 16-day India quest. And the dates are March 29th to April 13th. And you've been there, you know. We take people down slowly. We go to a really nice hotel in New Delhi, stay a couple days, then we take a bus, and then we stay in another pretty nice hotel. Then we go to Harakan, which is, you know, it's beautiful, but it's ashram.
It's in the boondocks.
You sleep in your sleeping bag on a mat on the floor, and, you know, it's like you participate. You get up at 4 a.m., you do the spiritual things. But it's bliss, wouldn't you say, CIARA? I mean, you don't mind. It's so beautiful there. It's so pure. I mean, when's the last time you bathed in a river?
Yeah.
You know, come on, like people used to, you know, bathe outside in natural settings, and so that's where we bathe, in the river, and it's just this unbelievable experience. Yeah.
Right, and I think, you know, that we go during the Divine Mother Festival, and they have 9 straight days of ancient ceremonies, so you can make years and years of progress in one day, decades of progress in one day there. And I've seen people get over problems that they had for years in these 10 days. So yeah, thanks for bringing it up. We are looking forward to that. And you know, I'm really excited about this training we're going to do this month, the Miracle Consciousness training. And we're going to spend a lot of time talking about what we call the Dream Team, which is the Divine Mother, Babaji, and Jesus of the Course in Miracles. We'll be integrating those people, those masters in our life, and it's a wonderful training. We'll have 3 sessions of breathing, so some of you may want to attend that.
And we'll go deeply into processing in people's case and what they need to do to look at before they do the breath work. And yeah, so it's one of our favorite trainings. Actually, we're calling it Babaji's training, Miracle Consciousness training. So all the masters are there, and yeah, it's wonderful.
And you also do water rebirthing trainings.
Well, we're
in Iceland.
Yeah, you know what, we are.
Why the water
Yeah.
in Iceland? Tell everybody.
We would really love for you to come to Iceland in January.
We are going
to see the Northern Lights.
We are going to go to Iceland in January because we've never seen the Northern Lights, and of course the Blue Lagoon is the largest body of thermal waters in the world. And it's really warm, so we'll be out there under the stars and the green Northern Lights. Anyway, that training is kind of a wonder to me, because the way I got that training was when I left India. Babaji's High Priest Shastriji handed me this paper, and it was 108 names of the Divine Mother. I didn't know why he gave it to me, or I didn't know what it was. And I arrived in Stockholm, and I'm in my hotel. I set up the altar, and I thought, well, I'll just read these names to the altar. So I'm reading these 108 names, and at the end, I just sat still, and suddenly I received the most incredible knowledge. I could have never thought of it myself. How to do an advanced wet rebirthing training where people do prayers. We design prayers for people to breathe under the water. And she said, always do it in thermal waters, because that's the real Divine Mother. So anyway, I grabbed my snorkel, I jumped in the bathtub, and I tried to do this technique, and it was pretty hard. It took me a couple days to learn it. Then I tried it on another guy who's a healer, and he came flying out of the water. He said, "This is a stroke of genius." I said, "Not from me." Directly from the Divine Mother. So then when Marcus came, I said, "You got to come and see the Blue Lagoon," and we decided to do it there. And we just did one in August for my birthday, and it was fantastic. So we thought, well, why not go back and try it in the winter when we're in the water under the stars, because it's darker, more dark. And we want to see the Northern Lights. So if anybody wants a real adventure in January, there you are.
And I'll send you the links for all these trainings, Ciara, so then you can put it out to your people.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, but yeah.
Have we covered everything?
I'm very lucky because I did your white water rebirthing training in Budapest.
When we went to the Blue Lagoon, we went there for like 6 years in a row, maybe more, 7 years. And then we were having so much fun. You know, the Blue Lagoon is a big lake, and there's all kinds of, like a couple hundred tourists as well in there. And we were sort of off to the side doing our breath work, but we were having so much fun. The tourists went to the Blue Lagoon and said, "Those people with the snorkels, can we do that? I mean, it looks so great what they're doing." And we're just laughing and having this blast. And then the Blue Lagoon said, "Well, we don't offer that as a practice, you know, as something that we offer. They have massage and all that." So then they took us aside at the end and they said, "Well, we're not sure we want you to come back because there are too many people asking to do this and we don't offer it." So we were kind of expelled from the Blue Lagoon, and that's why we went to Budapest that year. And so it was okay, but it wasn't the Blue Lagoon. It was still thermal, natural water.
Nice
one. It was
yeah.
Wonderful place. We had it. But then we thought, during the pandemic, you know, when it first hit, we thought, let's ask the Blue Lagoon again, because I bet they're really hurting for business in this pandemic. So we said, oh yeah, we'd like to come back in 2021. We went there for Sandra's 80th birthday and had a blast. And they said, "Oh yes, we remember you. Certainly, come back in 2021." So it took a pandemic to kind of wake them up to see, oh yeah, we're really their good customers, right? So now we're, knock on wood, back on the Iceland schedule, and we're thinking of going, we're trying to go twice a year instead of once, and offer this wet rebirthing training that's very powerful. And it's also very blissful. People really get peaceful. They get a sense of well-being, of being cleared, of being nurtured. It's just one of the best places in the world to do this training.
And we do our rebirthing school in Bali too, but we can't go this year because of the pandemic, and we couldn't go last year, of course. So we're hoping 2022 in December.
2022,
we're hoping we'd like to do the rebirthing
raising
school.
the rebirthing flag again.
Well, I love to do rebirthing schools in Bali and Iceland, and yeah, so. Okay.
Good. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay.
Yeah, great.
For Marcus?
It'd be great if you'd have some questions.
Anybody want to ask anything?
Come on, I know someone wants to ask something. Sarah.
Okay.
Sarah.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you so much. It's so good to meet you.
Okay.
I have just ordered, or actually I found it at an herb store, the Course in Miracles.
Uh-huh.
Good.
So I'm trying to formulate my question. I am in the process of healing my connection with God because of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, as I'm going through the Course in Miracles, I'm like noticing like the Holy Spirit, and then all of a sudden I'm like,
yeah,
kind of almost having some aversion to it because of
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing you talking about, having these like Babaji and I'm just wondering if you could like your experience with the Course in Miracles, like trauma there.
Yeah. Okay. So first, when you start the Course in Miracles, if you could just put aside all of your past religious false theology. We call it false theology. And, we all grew up in, well, not all of us, some of us had atheist parents, but many of us grew up in a traditional church environment. And there were a lot of things they taught us about original sin and guilt, and they made God very unpalatable, like this God is a punishing entity. And so when you get to the Course, all of that is erased. And there is, the language is still there, like the Holy Spirit and God, but these are very benevolent forces. Like if you substitute the word God for life force, we would all agree there is a life force that keeps things, flowing, living, and we can identify that. Well, that's all God is. It's a life force. And that force is on your side. That force wants only the best for you. That force wants you to be happy all the time. That force wants you to be free of all conflict. So when it uses the word God, Holy Spirit, keep that in mind, that it's a very benevolent, caring life force. And then all of this guilt and punishment and sin, it's being erased by the Course in Miracles. Jesus says that's false religious theology. There is no sin. There is no guilt. There is no fear. Those are things that the church made up and then put onto the people to keep them in a kind of a control, So all that's being erased by the Course in Miracles. It's Christian in tone, because Christianity was a major force on the planet with 2 billion people, that it has to be healed. So that's why the language is in the Christian tone. And the teacher really is the Christ consciousness. It's not Jesus per se, although that Christ consciousness from Jesus is coming through, but it's more of a consciousness that we share. It's like our highest possibility in our mind, and we all share that. It's joy, it's love, it's gratitude, it's peace. You know, all those qualities come through this consciousness that is the Christ consciousness, and that's what the Course in Miracles is introducing us to. And it's already in us. It's like we have that consciousness in us, so it's not like being subservient to any like outside force. You know, that force is in us. And I think that's the lesson of all the spiritual masters. They don't want anybody being dependent on them in the sense that, oh, I have to surrender my power away to a guru. No, they want you to find the guru in yourself. They want you to find that higher part of your own self, and they'll help you do that. So they're really kind of like, you know, cheerleader. They're cheering you on to find that greatest potential in yourself, and they never want you to be dependent on them. They want you to find that yourself.
If you're new to the course, we suggest you just start with the lessons,
workbook.
Start with the workbook, which is in the middle, and read one lesson a day. Okay?
Did you get the one volume or the one that's in 3 books? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's the one volume.
Yeah.
So start with the workbook, doing the lessons. It's more simple language, and it'll start to discipline you. You do 1 lesson a day for 365 days, and you don't have to understand it. In fact, it's still working, even if your conscious mind doesn't understand it.
And then
just do the practice.
And then just read like 1 page from the text, because it's too deep if you read more. You don't read the text like an ordinary book.
No, you can only read like 1 section in 1 chapter, and even that's a lot sometimes. So sometimes we just read 2 paragraphs and talk about it, you know.
Well, good for you. Congratulations that you found that. That's interesting that you found it in that kind of store.
It's wonderful. And we have a podcast on A Course in Miracles. There's about 75 podcasts that are very helpful. I think, I'll send the link to that to CIARA as well.
Thank you for that.
But thank you, Sarah.
Any other questions? Thank you, Sarah. Anybody else want to say anything or ask anything?
I don't really have a question. I'm just really honored that I get to meet you and really hear about the beginning of it all, because I have not read so much about Babaji yet, so it was really beautiful to hear your story. I'm definitely going to go and buy your book.
Okay, good.
To understand and feel it a little bit more.
Great.
Yeah, I hope to meet you one day. I'm grateful that Sarah brought up the book of the Course in Miracles. I've just been, I feel a lot of presence of Jesus Christ also these last years. Is something that I haven't understood rationally, but it's something that I regard as my lineage now. It's just simply an opening, basically, from the crown up into the universe. It's an information that keeps coming to me. So I'm just really grateful to have met you here online. And if you want to expand a little bit more even about Babaji, I'd be super keen. But I don't have a concrete question.
Okay. Where are you now?
I'm in Greece at the moment.
Really? Okay. What
What
island? Are you on an island?
I've trained with Katya.
Oh, good. Yes. Very good. Very good.
We know Katya.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, it's been great being with you. Thank you, CIARA, for having us. And we can do this again sometime, maybe even on a specific subject if you like. And it's great.
Thanks, CIARA, for having us.
You are most welcome. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, well.
So stick with the basics of breathwork. It's the fastest way of self-transformation that we know about. And it's also the deepest. I think it's long-lasting, it's fast. It'll give you a lot of insight into yourself. And a lot of healing is there. And you'll be happier. You'll be a happier individual by breathing more. And it's a lifelong spiritual path. You know, it's not something you do once and you say, well, yes, I did rebirthing back 10 years ago. No, it's like it's a spiritual practice you continue. And it just grows and grows and grows. So I'm glad you guys are introduced to it. And CIARA's been pretty much personally trained by
Yeah,
Sandra
thank
Ray,
you.
so she knows all the basics of
Yeah.
breathwork, and we would trust her with teaching it
Yeah.
in a very correct way.
Okay, y'all, stay in touch with us.
Will do.
So, bye.
God bless.